You know what no one talks about in BDSM? How spiritual it can be. And not in a woo-woo type of way, but in that deep, grounded sense where your mind goes quiet and your body becomes really present and power exchange feels almost like prayer. Most people think kink is just about sex or control or pain, but if you've ever had a scene that felt more like a religious experience, you know there's more to it. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Dom Sub Living podcast. I'm Alessandra from Dom Sub Living, and I've been living a DS power exchange relationship for over a decade now. And I can tell you, some of our most powerful moments didn't happen in bed. They happened in just silence, in leading and surrendering, in pain and pleasure, and in just our breath. It sounds crazy, I know, but by the end of this episode, you'll see how mindfulness and ritual and intention can turn any scene or any moment of connection, really, into a spiritual experience. But let's start with the big question that usually comes up first. Does this mean that BDSM replaces traditional spiritual practices, or is it just another tool for mindfulness and self awareness? Well, for me, it's not a replacement. I like to think of it more like a language. It's a way of exploring the same questions that spiritual people have asked forever, like who am I? What is power? What does surrender mean? But we do this through our body instead of just our mind. So that brings me to my first point that BDSM can feel spiritual. Because have you ever wondered why subspace feels so much like meditation or why dom space feels like a flow state? There's real science behind that. And if you don't know what subspace or dom space is, it's that mental and emotional state where everything else just kind of fades away. Your thoughts quiet down, time feels different, and you're just so engrossed in your role and who you are at this completely different level, kind of like this runner's high. And so the neat thing is, researchers who study intense focus and prayer and even long distance running have found these same patterns with subspace and dom space, where the dopamine and endorphins rise, and that part of the brain that tracks time and ego goes quiet, and the person feels connected to something larger. That's exactly what happens in a deeply focused state. It's an altered state of consciousness. The body relaxes, the thinking mind kind of steps back, and you enter a place of presence. When I first started exploring this, I was surprised how similar it felt to meditation. I could be experiencing this intense pain either from a flogger or a paddle or just my dom's hand. And even though I was feeling this intense pain, my mind was completely clear and I was on this whole other plane of existence. And it's the same for my dom. He tells me that when he's wielding the flogger or inflicting pain on me or tying me in this intricate rope bondage, that his mind just lets go and his body just takes over and he is just in this flow state where he doesn't even have to think about what he's doing. It just becomes second nature and he feels at peace, which is so weird because in those moments I could be whimpering in pain and crying and he is just in this utter bliss and peace. So, in these moments, that stillness and the loss of mental chatter and the awareness of breath, it's all there, just accessed in a different way. I remember one ritual with my Dom that completely changed my understanding of submission. It wasn't about intensity at all, it was about release. Halfway through, I realized I wasn't performing submission, I was becoming it. It felt like I was dissolving or melting, but in the best way possible, like all the noise in my head had finally turned off. Have you ever lost track of time in a moment of deep connection or found yourself breathing in sync with your partner without even planning it? What if that isn't just play, but a doorway into presence? People sometimes ask, how do you know the difference between subspace or dom space and a spiritual state? Are they the same? And honestly, I think they do overlap, but the difference is intention. If you go into it seeking connection or growth or self understanding, it becomes spiritual by nature. So now that we know that BDSM can feel spiritual, how do you prepare for that kind of mindful energy? Well, I'm going to show you step by step some rituals that set the energy so you can mindfully prepare for a scene. So, before you even touch a toy or give a command, you can shape the entire tone of your connection. Preparation is everything. Every spiritual tradition begins with intention. For example, before Buddhists meditate, they set an intention for awareness. I've been doing a lot of hot yoga lately, and even in yoga, we begin with choosing what we want to focus on that day in our practice, whether it's peace or strength or gratitude or whatever. So, the same is true for power exchange. Intention turns a routine into a ritual. It's what gives meaning to your actions. Before a scene, me and my Dom usually start in silence. He'll have me kneel, and there's no talking, no touching, just breathing together in each other's presence. I can feel when he drops into Dom space before he even says a word. It's subtle, but I'm totally aware of it. It's like the room itself shifts. And the cool thing is, you don't need elaborate setups for this. Sometimes it's as simple as clearing the space, dimming the lights, or lighting a single candle. I like music with a slow rhythm, something that kind of reminds me to breathe instead of think. And for him, it's more about grounding his energy before leading me through the scene. For me, it's also about opening and releasing the day and being fully present in each moment. But now, if you're listening and thinking, I'm not really a spiritual person, that's okay. You don't have to be. Mindfulness isn't about beliefs or religion, it's about attention. Even people who are skeptical can feel the difference between rushing through something and doing it with full awareness. One of my students told me that before every scene, she lays out water and a towel for her partner. It's her way of saying, I'm ready and I'm mindful. For her, that's sacred. Some people put out offerings for saints and dead ancestors, and kinky people just do it for their partners for a scene. No big deal. But if you want to try a simple grounding ritual with your partner, here's one that I love. So face each other, make eye contact, and just take 5 slow breaths together. And then on the fifth exhale, the Dom can say out loud, I lead, and the sub can reply, I surrender. That's it. It's just 30 seconds and the entire energy changes. So try it, because what if your next scene or your next conversation, even, what if it wasn't about performing roles, but it was about entering intentionally and being present? And later, I'll show you what spiritual aftercare looks like when you treat it as integration, not just recovery. So now you know how to mindfully prepare for a scene to make it more of a spiritual experience. So let's talk about energy exchange now. Now, most people think energy exchange sounds mystical or woo woo. It isn't magic, though, it's mindfulness. It's the science of two nervous systems syncing through breath and tone and rhythm. In fact, I always thought it was really cool that the Greek word for breath also means spirit or life force. So that's kind of a cool fact. So breath is really the bridge between control and surrender. It's also the easiest way to bring spirituality or presence into your connection. Now, when I'm all restrained and close to my limit, when my Dom tells me, breathe for me, everything changes. It's not about words or even direction, it's about awareness. Every inhale becomes trust, every exhale becomes release. You don't need a spiritual background to feel that. And if one person slows their breathing, a lot of the times the other person will naturally follow. It's a type of co regulation, just something humans do instinctively to create safety. Studies even show that rhythmic breath lowers stress hormones and releases oxytocin. That's the bonding chemical. That's why you can feel euphoric and calm after this deep connection. It's the same pattern that we see in advanced meditation. And DOMs can do this during impact play, breathing with each stroke or each smack. It's like almost what you would do if you were lifting weights, where you breathe with each rep. And if you want to strengthen this outside a scene, practice mindful breathing alone first. Just sit comfortably, inhale for 4 counts, exhale for 6, and notice what your body does when you exhale longer than you inhale. That slight drop in tension is your parasympathetic nervous system just really taking over. Then you can bring that same breathing into daily interactions. That's why I highly recommend to all my students and clients to take up a meditation practice. It can really benefit your scenes because the more you train your body to recognize calm, the more easily you can find it when emotions are running high. A lot of people will ask me, well, how do I talk about incorporating this kind of thing with a partner who's skeptical? Start small. You don't have to call it breath work or mindfulness. Just say, how about we take a few seconds to breathe together before we start playing or before we have this conversation? Once they feel the difference, they'll understand. In a few minutes, I'll share specific rituals you can add to your dynamic to carry this mindfulness into everyday life. But we talked about the energy exchange. So, how do you do spiritual aftercare so you can really integrate these practices and truly heal? Well, aftercare is usually talked about as comfort. You have water, blankets, you give reassurance, maybe cuddle, and yeah, all those things matter, but spiritual aftercare goes a step further. It's about integration. The same way meditation teachers say you should ground yourself after deep practice, or even how you do integration after a psychedelic experience. It's the same thing. After intense emotional or energetic experiences like BDSM, both partners need to return to normal basically and process what just happened. For me and my Dom, aftercare often looks like quiet connection. Sometimes it's laying together, sometimes it's just, light touch. Sometimes it's sharing a few words about what each of us felt. It's the stillness afterward that allows growth. One of my favorite rituals is showering together after a scene. It's symbolic. Water represents grounding and renewal. And a lot of times we don't say anything and we're not in a huge rush to just wash up and get out. So we just stand there and kind of look at each other and let the warm water wash over us. And without talking, we're able to kind of say to each other, we're back, we made it, and we did this together. You can create your own version of spiritual aftercare however you like. It could be journaling a few lines, after a powerful moment you had, just writing something like, what did I learn about myself? Where did I open and where did I resist? Even if you're the Dom or the sub, you can journal. And over time, those reflections become a spiritual diary of your growth. Sometimes people ask, well, what if my partner isn't comfortable with emotional or spiritual aftercare? Start by modeling it. You might just say, let's sit for a minute and breathe. If you make space for calm, most partners will follow. And again, you don't have to call it spiritual. You're just helping the nervous system settle. When aftercare becomes intentional, it's no longer the end of something, it's the beginning of transformation. Because here's the bigger truth. What if BDSM is one of the few spaces left where people still practice true surrender, not as a weakness, but as a awakening? I did a whole episode on my past experiences of being in a high control religion and my history with Christianity. So if you haven't listened to that yet, definitely go back and search for it and check it out. Because the truth is, churches and other places of worship can be a place that is very unsafe. And many people who are a part of them feel like they have to hide who they are, and they deal with shame and judgment from other people who are a part of that religion or church. Religious trauma is a huge thing that people have to deal with. So, BDSM is one of those few places left where people can truly let go and embrace who they are. And a lot of people, like myself, have replaced mainstream religion, with practices like BDSM. And in a world obsessed with control and exploitation, we are creating a safe to explore and let go safely. That's radical. Submission teaches humility and trust and presence, and dominance teaches awareness and patience and responsibility. Those are spiritual principles, not fantasies. Every time I kneel, I'm reminded that surrender isn't about losing power, it's about choosing where to place it. That choice is sacred. And for my Dom, leadership isn't about forcing control, it's about service. He leads so I can let go. I let go so that he can lead. It's a loop of trust that when you do it with intention, it becomes healing for both of us. And people will sometimes ask, well, how can I tell if my BDSM journey is truly transformative or if it's just kinky? And my answer is always look for integration. Are you growing as a person? Do you feel calmer and clearer and more compassionate and more mindful? Because kink by itself fades, but transformation lasts. When you use this lifestyle as a mirror, you start seeing patterns where you hold on too tightly, where you resist, where you crave control because you fear letting go. Those insights ripple into everything else, your relationships, your work, even how you talk to yourself. That's why I see BDSM as a modern mindfulness practice. It's not escapism, it's embodiment. It lets us explore the parts of ourselves that religion tends to ignore, the darker parts of ourselves, our shadow sides, the need for balance. Now, before I give you your final action step, if you're curious about bringing more mindfulness into your daily dynamic, I created a free master list of 20 rituals and protocols that can help you find real connection and intention. You can grab it for free at domsubliving.com/rituals. I'll put a link for it in the description too. And it can help you integrate kink into your life. So again, that's domsubliving.com/rituals. Now let's bring this full circle. So BDSM can absolutely be spiritual, not because of what you do, but because of how aware you are while doing it. Presence and intention turn even simple tasks into sacred ones. Mindful connection isn't, just something that experts and gurus do. Anyone can practice grounding and breathing and choosing awareness. If you take one thing from today, let it be this. Spirituality and BDSM share the same heartbeat, basically. They both involve awareness and intention and transformation. They both ask you to live your truth in your body, not just in your mind. So ask yourself, where does your power live? And how can you bring more breath and more compassion and more spiritualness into it? If this conversation opened something for you, and I hope it did, definitely subscribe and share it and keep exploring with me. And if you're ready to deepen your own BDSM practice, don't forget the free master list of rituals at domsubliving.com/rituals. The link's in the description too. And until next time, keep embracing your power and pleasure through Dom Subliving.